All right. Apparently, y'all, um, we just had a death in the family, and
Pray for
Brandy is dressed appropriately for the funeral. I ain't gonna be able to attend. Um,
y'all got the family, we done made t-shirts. So we done made these t-shirts that say Blanche, Dorothy, Rose, and us. Sophia's down there. Sophia family shirts. So you gotta come dressed, man.
Daddy.
You know. I can't get in the family car looking in no kind of way.
I just want to say that when I first saw, I just walked out. I just walked away.
I should have
So
told y'all. So I know y'all ain't riding the family car, but I could have told you so you know what the color scheme was for the funeral.
Yeah, would have helped.
right.
So your grand,
So
she gonna work in the kitchen. She don't like fumes, so she gonna be serving in the kitchen.
I'm gonna be serving a roll, some green beans, some potato salad, some store bought chicken, and a
Yeah,
cake.
that's it. Store
And
bought cake too, pound cake.
Cause they don't even have those sheet cakes no more. So we just gonna do old
They
pound
just
cake.
cut up
Amen.
the pancake.
All right, so we're gonna start with the church announcements this week. Thank you so much for joining us in 2022.
Every time I look over there.
As y'all know, we have had a death in the family, and
Oh man.
some of us are in deep, deep mourning for the loss of Sister Betty. She now joins the rest of her sisters, Blanche, Sophia, and Dorothy, on the other side of the veil. Keep her family in prayer.
keep them in prayer, Lord. Keep them in prayer.
If you're going to the viewing or to the funeral, you know, don't take your camera in there, no pictures. Uh, you know, and then we're gonna have the repast. And like I said, the menu is as follows: store bought chicken, green beans, potato salad, a roll, and some cake.
And if
And
you ain't there when the family car come,
you don't get fed.
at the
And
time 9:30 sharp, you ain't riding in the family car.
No.
I ain't got no full. I ain't got no full. I mean,
We paid for three
Or
family.
any garbage bags. We
I
ain't
ain't
got
got. I
no,
ain't
we
We
ain't
got.
got no
paid for
Walmart
three
bags.
family cars. But if you don't get yourself over there, you're gonna be riding in your own car.
Now I don't know how many family cars, how many people fit in a family car, because everybody I have spoken to has said that they ride in a family car. Everybody.
The front two family cars,
Yeah, everybody seems to be riding in a family car.
I'm assigned to the second family car with the family, close family and friends. Now you can put the rest of the family in the front car or the back car, but that
Yeah,
second
it's
car.
secured. Secured.
Can I just comment on how angry I am about Brandy all this jewelry that she has on?
Told you, every time I kept looking over there, I kept laughing because I'm like,
I don't know whether she's a pimp or a preacher.
these.
I don't know.
I told you that's why I feel like she could
You
sing.
know when them mothers come to the church that they ooh, I didn't drop my ring. Good thing I brought a backup. They come with all their jewelry on.
Oh dear God. Oh God. Oh
You
my.
don't have to match it now.
I love it.
Yeah, so Sister Betty left on, was that New Year's Eve? It was announced today that she did die of natural causes. She was 99 and a half. Um, and some change. I think it
And
was 17 days, or her
try
birthday
to
was on the
make
22nd or the
100
17th or something
because
like that. But it was within a month.
99
And
and a
I
half.
have won't do.
Lord, I'm running.
Trying to make 100 because
99 and a half won't do.
As you guys can see, so if you've seen the show before, as you can see, it has continued. That we have not apparently have not learned anything from from last year, and we're
I
going to the shenanigans right on into yeah. We just gonna take them. I don't know which way my shirt goes.
just keep us in prayer.
Yes, keep all of us in prayer, amen. Okay, so if you're new to the show, um, this is Black Coffee and Crime. We talk about true crime events, current events, and other things that we find on Algore's internet. We're not making up anything. We do give our opinions, so those things are made up. And we just kind of discuss true crime cases, things that are in the news, and give our perspective. You might not agree with the way that we deliver our perspective, and that's fine. We at all times we try to be respectful. Sometimes we do laugh because life is horrible, so you gotta laugh at something. But if you disagree with anything that we have to say, that's okay. You can always hit us up on Instagram or Facebook or info@blackcoffeecrime.com and just let us know that you disagree. Give us new information. You can give us show ideas and all of that. But at all times, be respectful because just like in 2020 and 2021.
I prefer a handwritten letter because I don't have no emails or no computers. A nice handwritten note will do.
Yes. So write the note, but be respectful because he at work and
This is my grandson's phone.
oh Lord.
I don't know how to work none of this.
Oh, y'all keep mother over here in your prayers. All right. Keep mother in your prayers. I just I can't do it. I can't. I completely thrown back, appalled, flabbergasted,
no.
all of that. Seeing this get up today. I did not know
Oh,
that this is what I was going to walk into.
it's amazing.
So, this is completely unscripted. We know what we're going to talk about. We just don't know what we're going to say. And apparently we don't know how we're going to appear physically on the show. So, yes. All right. So moving along, those are the announcements as follows. Govern yourselves accordingly. So again, this is the first show of 2022. We took a week or so off at the end of the year. A lot of things happened. Betty White passing away. Quite a few other celebrities also passed away in the past week. Was his name Max? Was his name Max Adrian, the guy from the Mac?
Think so.
I think it was Max.
So I'm trying to fix appointments, Chad.
Let me look up celebrity deaths. Celebrity deaths 2022. Just already. So yes, it's Julian Maxwell. He was in the Mac. Cleopatra Jones. Well, he wrote the screenplay for Cleopatra Jones. He starred in it. He also appeared in the Mod Squad. A 1966 film called The Black Klansman. And then in pop culture, he was in a movie called How to Be a Player. So most people born after a certain time know him as that. So he did pass away. I just want to say that I did not like his character Goldie in the Mac. I understand why he was an iconic character, but I couldn't stand Goldie's ass. But one movie I did like him in was called Thomasine and Bushrod. That was like a a western with him and I think it was his wife or his partner, female partner, and it's a pretty damn good movie. Let's see who else has passed away. Um, well, you know, I hate these little things that they give you one person, then you got to read all of it, and then they only give you the one. Um, uh, who else done died? There's somebody else who had died.
Well,
Okay.
we'll just keep them all in prayer. We got to get to going because my ankles and my hands are swelling up.
You gotta get put Epsom salt.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it as soon as I get home.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take these old toe wedges off.
Keep looking
Oh,
up.
she got them wedges on to make your feet do like this, your toe. You know
Your
that mother toe. That yes. Just when you got to get them in taupe, because if they're not in taupe, it don't work. You get the black ones and they
Not
work.
toad.
You got to get the taupe ones.
Not
Um,
toad.
all right, so let's go ahead and get started.
Mm.
So yeah, eventful year. A lot of stuff going on, politics or whatever. Omicron is running rampant. It's ramping up again. Stay safe, whether you vax or not. Stay safe.
Yeah.
That's all I
days.
can say. Just stay
It's the
safe.
last day.
Um, it's up to you. It's your choice now.
Wear your
What
mask.
to do, how to do it. Just be safe. All of us know. I don't think there's not too many people who actually want to die. And I don't think that this virus is the way that you really want to go.
No.
You don't want to go next, hooked up to a ventilator.
Mm-mm.
So there's that. The oh, I just canceled this. Did the young driver in Colorado who got 110 years, the governor reduced it to 10 years.
You shouldn't have no time.
Nope.
So you
No.
don't think he's at fault at all? Like
I mean, yeah, but
there's no responsibility. He has no responsibility in this crash.
he couldn't control the brakes. Was
So, I
it
mean,
his?
of course he has some kind of responsibility, but I mean, it's not like
It's vehicular
he had that
homicide.
kind
He
of,
killed four
that much.
people.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Manslaughter or something.
Horrible.
Call it
Yeah, I mean, it's horrible.
manslaughter. I don't know
Okay,
because
so manslaughter still carries a sentence. Vehicular manslaughter.
Yeah,
not
yeah.
100 years.
No, I think
Yeah.
what you were saying that he shouldn't have got any time.
Well, I don't think it
Uh,
isn't like he did no malice.
I don't think.
Now they might sue
sentence-
him like crazy. The family might sue him all kind of ways.
Well, one of the brothers, one of the guys who was killed was named Dwayne Bailey. His brother Bill, no, Dwayne Bailey is the brother of someone that was killed in the accident in 2019. He's not very happy about it. He says that the governor is a despicable human being for doing that. I
There's
don't.
accidents every day.
Right.
I remember Christmas Eve, I went out and there was 3 accidents within a short 10-mile radius of where I was going. Like, if we threw people in jail for every time somebody had an accident that ended poorly, I mean, I don't see that he had any malice. Now, as far as suing him or whatever, do what you got to do. But
Definitely sue the trucking company.
yeah,
Definitely
but
sue the trucking company.
I don't think that
Because
he's out that
those
day
brakes
talking
should have
about.
been inspected. They did say he was. I think they said that he would the rate of speed. Well, because he didn't have his brakes, so I guess his speed increased.
Can't control the speed.
Yeah. He was found guilty on 27 counts, including reckless and careless driving. Which,
They said he tried to miss him.
yeah. So the
You
judge,
can't stop them trucks.
right? We talked about this before. The judge didn't necessarily want to give that type of sentence, but under the law, his hand was kind of forced, so he had to kind of go forward with the 110. There was like almost over 4 million people who signed petitions to get the sentence reduced. Now the governor took over and the 10 years. I don't
Do
know.
we know how? Do we know how the guy feels about the 10 years?
Let me see if I can find an appropriate article.
Because I mean, 10 years is better than 110 years, but I can see suing the company, suing him, whatever. But I just throwing him in jail for something he couldn't control. I mean, he
Yeah.
said that he wasn't on no kind of narcotic.
Yeah, his name was the driver was Rohel Aguilera Madero's 26. He's Cuban. I don't know. I didn't know he was Cuban, which it
He
really
wasn't
doesn't.
drinking no nip. He
He would
wasn't.
be eligible for parole in 5 years. So in 5 years, he will be eligible for parole.
Mm.
Yeah. So I'm quite sure, no one wants to go to prison or stay in prison, but the prospect of dying in prison, like definitely dying in prison and being out with, have the possibility of being out within 5 years is, I think that's more than what he can expect. Like realistic. I think that's more than what he can expect. So, yeah. So the people who died in the crash was a 24-year-old Miguel Lamas Ariano, 67-year-old William Bailey, 61-year-old Doyle Harrison, and 69-year-old Stanley Politano. They all died in that crash in 2019. Y'all have any news or any stories in the past week or so?
Well, I sent you one the other day. I wasn't meaning to talk about it during the show, but the serial killer, the 23-year-old serial killer in Miami, been killing the homeless folks. He's a real estate agent. I can't think of his name right now, but they think that there's more bodies. He killed more people than they're aware of. 23 years old, real estate agent, nice looking young man.
Did you see that? You did. Let me see. Well, that was on YouTube, so I'll have to watch it later. So we'll definitely take a
No, it
look
was
at
an
that.
article. Was it the article or was it the news?
You sent to YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, it was on to YouTube. So, let me see if I can bring it up without it popping up.
We start with a developing story from the city of Miami. That's where
Willie Maceo is the guy's name.
Nice looking young man.
Mm-hmm. That was from a news cast. They might have heard. But
I think them people.
Willie Maceo.
I think they be practicing on homeless folks until they get it right, and then they move on, starting to kill other folks.
Who does that, and like you said, practice? Because I mean, you don't need to necessarily practice killing someone unless you have some morbid, like, fetish.
No, like practice killing them, disposing of them, trying to get better and quicker and faster so you don't get caught. That type of thing.
Either that, or you just know that they're so marginalized that no one's really gonna know.
But folks did know. Realize.
I mean, how many did he kill before they found out?
I'm not sure the number, but he's a serial killer. They're calling him a serial killer, so it's more than 2.
It's more than 3.
Yeah.
So over a period of time.
He's only 23, so
I mean, hell, he could have started early. These kids are spree killers at 14. If you go into your school, you take a gun into your school and kill 5 students, you've just become a spree killer at 14 or 15. So it don't take much. It won't take much at all. Not at all. So All right, so okay, we had Christmas. How was your Christmas, Jackie?
It's okay. I think it was all right. I mean, my kids are older, so I mean, I don't really have to put in a whole lot of work for Christmas. I just get them the one thing they ask for, and we keep it pushing. So other than that, it was okay. It wasn't all that though.
And Brandy, yours?
Uh, didn't feel like Christmas.
Right.
Felt like, any old other day, you know,
Yeah.
like maybe a, a 3 day weekend or something, but didn't feel like Christmas.
Right.
Um,
Wasn't no sugar plum fairies and all that.
sorry for these adjustments I'm making. My Christmas is always a little bittersweet for this past decade or so. Um, my in 2005, my grandfather passed away the day after Christmas, and since then, I don't think anyone in my family said anything until just last week. I was talking to a cousin, and she's like, I just don't feel like Christmas. She's like, it's always, I always, when Christmas comes, I always know what happened the next day. So I just don't feel it. And I was like, that's what I've been feeling for the past couple years. It's just another day for me. Like, I just don't even want to go anywhere. I don't want to cook. I don't want to do nothing. Um, I buy gifts for, my immediate family, and I'm happy that
Children.
they get them, but it's just, yeah, you know, for me. So yeah, I mean, it was a pleasant day. I went to my brother's house. We had a good time. We had breakfast, which lasted until 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
I
Um,
like those kind of breakfasts.
yeah, it lasted until three.
That
So
means you're having a good time. You're acting up. It
yeah,
also.
ended up with some liquor. Breakfast starts off with orange juice, ends up with liquor, kind of thing. So it was just being around family, so that was good. But it's always like a pall over the day that's just ugh. So yeah, there's that.
Yeah, my kids weren't even here, so I bought them gifts. They're the only, and I bought my sister's gifts, but I only gave one son his gift. I mean, and he just came back home. What, a week ago? The day after Christmas, he came home. So yeah, what? No, no, decorate. I didn't even go see the lights.
Me either.
That was one thing I wanted to do this
And
year.
I wanted to, but I did not go. I just didn't want to go.
I did want to go. It just didn't pan out that way. But I told my significant other, I was like, I want to go see the lights. Like that's what I want to do. I want to drive through and see some lights, but we didn't do that. Um, but it's okay. I'm from California, so they keep their lights up all the time there. So next time I go home in June or
And
something, the lights are still.
it was really warm here for Christmas. So
Yeah. It
really
was
warm.
warm here, and then Saturday it started off and it was like 74. But by about 5 o'clock, the temperature had dropped to about 30. So we dropped almost 40 degrees in a single afternoon.
But we were
And
about the same.
it's been colder than a well digger's ass since.
Mm. And Sunday night, well, Sunday morning, early morning was, I think, 18 degrees. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
We
It
were
was
in the
But
70s on Saturday.
mm-hmm.
Really tornado warnings. We in the hallway at what, about 6 something. And then I look outside that night and
You got
there's
snow on the
freaking,
ground.
huh?
Yes, you got snow on the ground.
Yeah, snow.
what?
And the neighbor's tree done fell off in my yard, and I'm still waiting for somebody to tell me who gonna come. I mean, it's a big tree too. I can't even see if my gate destroyed.
Randy,
Who gonna pick up all these flowers?
can you take them damn rings off?
No.
Well, what about your New Year's? Was the New Year's better?
It
Um,
was the same.
yeah. You know what? I'm
I
always
mean,
so glad
I
when
made the
holidays
I
come.
made the best of it, but I
Yeah.
mean,
I think, I spent my time, it was quiet. We played, of course there was a little liquor involved, some food. Um, but we played like this, kind of like a card game, had fun with that. 12 o'clock came, we said Happy New Year, no one really moved. We just kept doing what we was doing. And I think the priorities change when you get older because you're like, unless I'm gonna go do something like extravagant, stay at home. If you go to a club, you're gonna spend what, $80, $90 to get in. It's gonna be crowded. You gotta pay for drinks. You got just stay home. So it was funny because none of our kids were there. None of our
Where
kids were there.
is that?
Girl doing their own thing. One of them lives in Houston. He was off doing his thing. My daughter was at home. I had talked to her and seen her earlier during the day. Um, and then my niece, she was off at her own apartment. She stayed home. So it was like, we're all at home. We're like, oh, we got some grown kids. So they were just off doing their own thing.
Yeah. We'll try again next year.
As long as they are safe and sound, then I'm good. As long as they're safe, I'm good. All right. Okay, so let's talk about this case with this 1971 case out of Riverside, California. I'm not sure who reminded me of this. I think my sister-in-law did a couple weeks ago, but I grew up in Riverside. Brandy grew up in Riverside our entire lives. And although I had heard about it, no one really talked about this. And I think the reason in my family, the reason why no one talked about it is because one of my family members was involved in the case. So it's one of those family things that people know about it, but you don't want to talk about it. Um, and then, I understand why no one talks about it because no one wants to talk about someone being accused of being a murderer, especially a murderer of a cop. So this case involved the ambush killing of Leonard Christensen and Paul Teal, both on the Riverside Police Department in 1971. They were ambushed April 2nd, 1971. All right. So Brandy, prior to us talking about this recently, had you ever heard about this case before?
No, we didn't. I mean, when I asked my mom about it, she remembered,
Mhm.
but we never talked about. I mean, I didn't know anything about it until you said anything.
Okay. There was a couple years ago when, out of the just random, one of my aunts called me and she's like, she was trying to find the name of the cop, one of the cops, and I was like, I don't know, I couldn't find anything, and the one thing I did find at that time was um just like his name, Paul Teal's name, on the memorial of fallen officers in Riverside. Since then, I do see a lot more articles um, regarding that, and that's partially due to in 2013, the granddaughter of Leonard Christensen was in high school, and she did a high school project on the murder, and so that kind of like rekindled interest into the case. So there was a couple of articles in the Riverside Press Enterprise. You'll also you can find articles from the Washington Post. Um, there's a very nice article in the Vietnam Veterans Against the War on their website. Um, and let's see here. I think I have that one up. Yes, Vietnam Veterans Against the War. And that is an article written by one of their attorneys for um, Gary Gary Lawton, who was the primary suspect in the case. Okay, so let's talk about, sorry about that, um, the little bit of history on Riverside. In the Washington Post article from 1971, to paraphrase, it says that Riverside was Christian, middle class, and very white. And it was. I don't think people associate California with being segregated, but boy, it was, and it still is, because you still have enclaves of neighborhoods where you have, Hispanics and the blacks and the whites and the Asians and whatever. Well, Riverside was primarily white. The only people of color that lived there mostly were migrant workers for a very, very long time. Riverside
They
is
still, they're still really Republican leaning city.
absolutely, absolutely. It's a very, um, it's kind of like Pleasantville when it comes to
Mm.
politics in Riverside. You know what I mean? Um, I went to a predominantly, well, white neighborhood, school in a white neighborhood, but predominantly Hispanic and white.
I think they were like neck and neck for percentage. I think white people were more white people by a few percentage points.
Than Hispanics, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And it's still pretty much that way now. But just based on the perspective then when I was a kid going to school, and even now, it is still very much a Pleasantville where, um, you get this sense that everything is nice and smooth as mayonnaise, but it isn't, because you've kind of seen the underbelly of it. You've seen, or heard about, or had somebody experience police brutality in Riverside, and it's horrible. It always has been horrible. Um, it's based on, the city is like a citrus mecca. So Riverside is all about citrus, the orange groves, the lemon groves, all of that. And it's basically, there were like Hispanic neighborhoods kind of like carved out because of those were the migrant workers. And when my grandfather said that he first moved to Riverside, um, he moved without his family first, and it was so segregated that he could not walk downtown. He couldn't
Wow.
walk down Main Street downtown. He was not allowed as a black man to walk down Main Street. And when he was walking in Riverside, he was not allowed to carry a metal lunchbox. I don't know what that was about. He had to carry his food in a paper bag.
To be used as a weapon.
Yep,
I guess, but anything
that
can
makes
be used as
sense.
a weapon. He could have picked up a rock
I
and
don't think
used it
they
as
was
a
that
weapon.
bright to think ahead.
I don't know.
I mean,
Uh,
nobody knows.
yeah. And Riverside is really one of those cities, just like a lot of California cities, where there is not much of a physical divide of the have and the have-nots. You'll have what are nowadays multi-million dollar homes next to a very modest home in the same neighborhood or a street
You
over.
go over to the next street and it's a totally different
Yeah. And
neighborhood.
so that's why it kind of seems like Pleasantville is because everyone is meshed together, but the ideologies are very, very different. Um, one of the
I
things,
think I've seen more racism in Riverside than I have seen living in the South. Because theirs is more pleasant racism, like hi, whatever. But on the flip side, they're very pleasant to you, but what they do to you is racist. Here, they'll tell you up front, I don't like you, whatever. So
yeah,
keep your eye on that person.
yeah.
Riverside, there's
It's
hi,
very,
how you doing?
it's kind of like everyone gets along. What did they say? You go along to get along. Um, and you don't really know people that you've grown up with or went to school with, or you um worked with for a long time, you don't know what their political leanings are or who they really are until later. And you were always surprised. You're like, I, I didn't even think, because everyone is so pleasant. Everyone is just, we all live together. So we're just going to make it right for right now until, there's a secret clan meeting on Wednesday nights. Um, I do remember growing up where I went to high school in Rubidoux, which borders Fontana, California, which is another county, which is San Bernardino County. Fontana is one of the most racist cities in California. Back in the day, they had a
Montana.
KKK rally. Um, they, I think they had a Christmas KKK rally. There used to be a white supremacist biker gang that lived a couple blocks from my mom's and Brandy's mom's house. Um, but again, you knew that that's where they were, and you could pass by their house. They would not bother you, but you knew that that's where they were. They flew the flags and everything, but that's what it was. Riverside also has a horrible reputation about police brutality in its prosecutor's office.
Dang.
And that's where this case, that's where the problem with this case was, in the police department and with the prosecutor's office. This case started on the east side of Riverside, which is where I grew up. And it was still a very white part of town. But in the middle of it were, working class Black families. They owned their homes. So these are homeowners. So it wasn't a rundown part of town. It wasn't a rough part of town. But they did have a Black Panther meeting house in this neighborhood. Now, the Black Panthers, when they came in, they were, starting feeding programs and literacy programs and all of these things. And my mom remembers them doing like community breakfasts and things like that. So they didn't come into the neighborhood and like start anything like violent or anything. They were just there for the purpose that of education and uplifting the community. But of course, the Black Panthers already had a bad reputation with police. There was another group, Hispanic group called La Raza, also had a bad reputation with police. But all these groups kind of worked in kind of like a symbiotic relationship. We're for our community, we're for the people. But they all had a perception. There was always a perception that these brown people are coming into our neighborhoods to take over, or they're coming in our neighborhoods to hurt us and to rape and to pillage. You would have sworn that Nat Turner's rebellion was going to start every other Saturday night. So that time of 1970, 1971 was like really, really rough. And prior to
1970, wow.
Yeah, prior to the
reason I said that is because I know that race, we know racism never end, but when you think of a more race infused, like you said already, California isn't really connected to that type of thought process. And then for you to say 70s, it's kind of like, dang, 70s? You imagine even when you were telling me, I was like, okay, this is going to be an old school. No.
It wasn't that long ago, because we're all.
Was it that long ago? I was like,
but
what?
It's still a lifetime. It's still a whole generation that has passed. And, the 1970s is where, so 1968, Robert Kennedy was killed. Martin Luther King was killed in 1968. So this is still pretty fresh. The Watts riots hadn't, there was probably still smoke in the streets in Watts at this time. You know what I mean? So the city is, still, recovering from that. LA is still recovering from the Watts riots. So you are going to have some tension there. You also have George Jackson in San Quentin. So you have that going on in Northern California. So it's all bleeding out. Let's see here. Who was it? what was the not Bobby Seale, but Bobby Hutton had gotten killed. Hampton had gotten killed. So all of these things are kind of happening in this small little bubble of time. Prior to the ambush murders, there was a bank robbery on the east side, and a black man was shot in the back by police. So Gary Lawton, who was a primary suspect in this case, was an advocate, a community advocate and civil rights leader in the area. And he was getting together counsel and raising money for the defense of Mr. Parker, William Parker, who was shot, and also getting together like a council against the Riverside Police Department to do investigations on police brutality, community policing, and all of that. And so he was not a popular guy downtown. So when this happened, the way that it's reported is that on the night of April 2nd, a call came into the police department saying that there was a burglary at 4792 Ottawa Avenue. And at the time, there was no GPS. There was no way to know what the address was, where it was, that type of thing. It was just called out to the cops on the beat. So it wasn't a verified call because they didn't do that at that time until after these things happened, that they would call back to the homes and, call the number back and make sure that there was an actual call. So they go to the address. There's no one there. The cops pull into the driveway, and within seconds, there's shots ringing out from a shotgun. William Teal is hit 9 times. He's hit so hard that it spins him around, like he's spun around. He never touched his gun. He never got a chance to touch his gun. So this is a true ambush. While Leonard Christensen is trying to radio, he's hit in, I think, the arm first. He has some pretty superficial wounds at first, and then he's hit in the heart. But before he does that, before he is incapacitated by that shot, he's able to radio in that he needs help. There is a documentary, the documentary I was talking about from his granddaughter. Mm-hmm. It is on YouTube, and she does use footage from that call, and it's horrible. Mm-hmm. Leonard Christensen doesn't die on the scene. He dies on the way to the hospital, but it's horrible because that man is like, I need help. I can't breathe. Here's the thing though. They never saw the guys. It was a true ambush. So I'm familiar with Ottawa Avenue because, again, I grew up in this neighborhood, and I used to walk through the alleys to go to Thrifties and all of that. And speaking of Thrifties, my mom just told me that coincidentally, the 2 officers that were killed that night were the same 2 officers who took a police report for my grandmother the night before. Whoa. Because my 2 youngest uncles, they had had their bicycles stolen at Thrifties. So she called the police, and they were the ones who came out and took the police report. So that was their beat. The east side was their beat. Well, 4792 Ottawa Avenue is on the other side of Pennsylvania Avenue. Well, at the time it was Pennsylvania. Now it's MLK Boulevard, and it is on the side of Stratton Center, Boardwell Park, and Emerson Elementary School. No Black people lived over there at that time. And I looked at the house. The house is still there, and it's at the end of the park. Across the street from the home is like a parking lot and a holding area for like the utility vehicles and all of that. And there is like some shrubs and stuff over there. So I'm just imagining now it would have been in a horrible, it would be bad to walk over there. So I can't even imagine what it would have been like in 1970 with no lights. So they went into an ambush, and they couldn't move because they had pulled into the driveway. They pulled into the driveway, so they couldn't back up. They didn't see them. So here's the bad part. This is where it gets iffy. There supposedly were some witnesses that said that there were three young white teenagers and a short black man with an afro leaving the scene of the ambush. But they arrested three very tall black guys. Gary Lawton was a grown ass man at 33, light skinned with a hole in his fro, like George Jefferson hole in the fro. Nehemiah Jackson, I wasn't able to get a picture of him, but I'm assuming he's a brown skinned guy. And then Larry Gardner is a very dark skinned guy. I'm talking about like behind the refrigerator black and tall, like, a black guy. So I don't know how they
Look
were
over there.
able to, get the description of three white teenagers and then arrest three black men. And Brandy, you want everybody to see your t-shirt? Is that what he's?
No, I just had to sit up straight in my back.
Because all that jewelry you got on.
It's too heavy.
All that jewelry. So
It's
they arrest these guys. They arrest these guys on why? Oh girl, why are you sitting so stiff?
To me,
Yes.
my back, girl. You know
Oh,
I had a
Lord.
thing.
So they arrest the guys. It causes a huge uproar, but of course the police department wants to catch these guys. They want to blame someone. Someone has to go down. It takes 2 years before they go to trial. So these guys are on lockdown for 2 years. They are not allowed to see anybody for 2 years. 2 whole years. The first trial, because there were 3 trials within 8 years. The first trial was held in India. India is a retirement community. It always has been. It's hot as hell and cold as hell. There's only 2 temperatures in India. At the time it would have been all white except for service staff. So they move it to India because they think they're going to get a quick trial. It ends up in a hung jury. After that, they dismissed all charges against Nehemiah Jackson because he was actually a Bible college student from the desert area. So they dismissed all charges. At that point, after the first hung jury, Larry Gardner and Gary Lawton, they bail out. But of course, there's death threats. The police presence is ridiculous. Now, here's the thing about Larry Gardner. Very interesting thing. Larry Gardner is my mother's first cousin. He had come from Alabama not too many years prior to that to live with them. So I asked my mom, like even before this happened, what was life like on the east side? What was it like? Because the Black Panther Party was already there. Brandy's mom mentioned it too. There were wiretaps on the phones of people in the area because they were trying to find out, who was who's
Some
connected
kind
to
of
whom.
conspiracy.
Right. And then after this, my mom told me that once Larry was arrested, they didn't even know that he had been arrested or that he was involved or suspected to be involved in any of this for like 3 or 4 days. But they didn't know. But crazy things start happening. She said that they had a black mailman for years and years and years. All of a sudden, they have a white mailman. There used to be
Folks noted.
right. There used to be an alley right on the side of my grandparents' house, and she said the police would just sit in that alley. They would sit in the alley. They would light the house up with like those huge searchlights, so bad that they would have to get on the floor. Like they would have to lay on the floor because they were scared.
Do they know who gave who gave up his name to the police?
My mom said that it was a girl. It was a girl. Now, mind you, Larry is described as being wild and militant, young street guy, militant street guy, right? But the girl was a white girl.
You already know what I want to say.
It was a white girl. And she told the police that she was there when they were planning the ambush.
Well, was she there?
No,
You knew she wasn't there.
no.
But they had to have her come and say, but who did she get her information from? The police was already thinking?
I
Because
don't
he probably
know.
browsing, trying to get, the thing for the folks with the police brutality, trying to get the Martin Luther King name changed, so they was already
They already had their eyes on Gary Lawton. The police department was trying whatever they could do to get Gary Lawton and his wife, Chiquia. His wife was a nurse at Riverside Community Hospital. And she had brought up complaints of discrimination against the hospital. So she was also an activist. He was trying to get a park named for MLK at the time. He was fighting for William Parker. He was involved in he was a militant as shit. And even in the trial, he was lobbing all kinds of insults at the prosecutor, the lawyer, the stenographer, the cops. Anybody who came in there who was official of Riverside County, he was throwing them at.
my mom said there were the people in the neighborhood were a lot of middle class educated Black people who owned their home. Now these weren't like
own their home.
These weren't
Everyone
like
owned their home.
wayward type uneducated folks these were like people who went to work every day,
Yes.
had children, bought their homes.
Right. So these were homeowners. My grandfather, when he said that he moved there, his rent, no, excuse me, his mortgage was like $34 a month. And that was a lot. That was a lot.
Which house?
The one on Douglas.
That's crazy. Especially seeing how much it was later on.
Right.
When it was sold.
Yeah. So, these are people, and it's crazy because until that house was sold, that's when a lot of the original families started to sell their homes. They still owned them. The same families were still there. So that's crazy. But there was a little white girl, supposedly, allegedly, who told the police that she was present during the planning of the ambush. But this is what I find a little bit about that story.
Happy face.
Even though even though Larry was dating the girl, I don't think that Gary Lawton, with his stance against his militant stance, would have allowed her to be present. Because it would have already been the look on Jackie's face tells you what Gary Lawton probably would have been thinking at the time. So there's that. I asked my mom, what happened to her. She's like, she never heard anything from that girl again. She actually went to school with her. So Larry was like 20 when this happened, and the girl was in high school. Which
she moved somewhere else, and her name is something different.
Probably.
More than likely.
Right. So during these trials, these witnesses all of a sudden started to recant their testimonies. They weren't there. They didn't see anything. There was an officer, Officer Lund, was one of the first officers on the scene. He said that he knew it was Gary Lawton because he talked to Gary Lawton not too long after the murders at the scene. Gary Lawton was never at the scene. He never saw Gary Lawton at the scene. He later said that he must have imagined it. But he also said Which article was it? Let me
When he
see.
called him old nig and something,
He
or say,
did, and I want to quote what was in this article. Oh my gosh, can I find this? Oh, I wish I could find this. He was very, very nasty saying this. Yeah, I can't find it.
basically he said he was looking for some niggers and on the
Yes,
hunt for some niggers.
and he wanted to kill him. He just wanted to kill some niggers at night.
Mhm.
That's what he said. But that was in an in-house interview. Um, that was in an in-house interview. Um, I don't know how if that was brought up during the trial or that was brought up later about him saying that. But each trial was a hung jury. So the first trial, hung jury, they let Nehemiah go. They're like, nah, he didn't do anything. Second trial, same result. Larry Gardner is released. The third trial, Gary Lawton is found not guilty. Case closed. They've never been able to find any other suspect.
You know what's crazy about that is the trials and the testimonies from the police officers and stuff proved what had been said all the time about how the police department was racist and they were, you know, uh, with the police brutality and all of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like I said, the first trial was in India. Second trial was actually downtown Riverside. The third trial was in Los Angeles. And what this reminds me of with the prosecutors in the police department is the O.J. Simpson trial. With O.J. Simpson, they had all the evidence in the world, but they had all the hubris as well. They just knew that they were going to catch O.J. So they didn't do their job. And what happened with that trial was the corruption in LAPD with the murder squad came out, and now the officers were on trial rather than OJ. That's pretty much
Yeah,
what
that's
happened.
exactly what happened.
They were so overzealous to get Gary Lawton. They had to find some way to get Gary Lawton. So they roped Nehemiah Jackson and Larry Gardner into being suspects to get Gary Lawton, and then they lost everything. Once he was released, it says in an article from the Vietnam Veterans Against the War that they were released, and these cops at I think it was the second trial, they crowded the streets. They put their lights on, they put their sirens on, and as they're walking Gary out to his wife, they're shouting "nigger lover" and all that stuff. These are the Riverside Police Department cops.
But they wanted him not to be a nigger lover. Did they want him to be a white woman lover?
The lawyer was white.
Oh, so they was yelling at the lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the lawyer was white. One of the lawyers, I believe, in the third trial was one of the same attorneys that George Jackson used before his passing in San Quentin. But no, Soledad. Was it Soledad, brother? Is that the name of the book? Is it Soledad, brother, Brandy?
You don't know.
With George Jackson? Let me look it up. Because this is very. Y'all all right?
It's Jackie.
Yes, Soledad, not San Quentin. I keep saying San Quentin. Soledad, brother. That was George Jackson. He was involved in a shooting like a retaliation shooting. They called a retaliation shooting for the death of his brother, um, around that same time in San Francisco. Um, so yeah, it just, I understand the police being this fraternity, this brotherhood or whatever, and they want to catch the killers, but it never fails that when someone black is suspected of being a cop killer, racism is just right there in the face. It's never just about the loss of the cop. It's something else. It's always something else. Now I can understand if a black man kills a cop or any other person, any other human, it shouldn't be about race at that point. It's just the fact that you took someone's life unnecessarily. That's what it should be about. But it comes down to that. Another thing I found, Brandy, did you watch the documentary about Christensen's granddaughter?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I understand her perspective. This it I won't say it was skewed, but you can tell it the perspective in that documentary that she did was a bit emotional. And I didn't know that it was his granddaughter, Leonard Christensen's granddaughter, until like the end of it when she actually says it. But I found it to be a bit emotional, and then I understood why. She lost the grandfather before she even knew her grandfather. He died way before she was born. So I understand that her perspective is coming from a sense of loss and probably family bias, because one of the first things that is said is talking about racial tension in the area because of protests against the Vietnam War. Groups like Brown Pride and La Raza and the Black Panther Party were anti-police. I think just like BLM, they weren't necessarily anti-police. It was anti-police brutality.
Big difference.
Fairness.
But they see it all the same.
Yes, they do.
Anything that is some sort of empowerment or something, a group that is willing to speak out and is having an effect on the community is going to be an issue. Like I was watching a documentary about James Brown when MLK was shot and how he had to come to Boston, and they didn't like the fact that he had enough power to where Black folks listened to him. That if someone who could stop a riot could create a riot.
Mm.
So they didn't like the power that he had.
Mm.
They were happy for him to stop the riot, but then when other cities were calling him to come in and speak to the people, they start to have an issue with that because he was getting too much power. His voice was being heard by too many people that he could influence. So a lot of times it's not even about white people at all. It's just about trying to better your own community and speak to your own people who understand you. But the fact that there's someone who can speak to their people and sway them one way or the other, they see it.
Fear, because I think a lot of this is white fear that they're going to do to us what we did to them.
Yeah.
When the reality is this, we just want y'all to leave us alone.
That's really it.
We want to be able to build our community without fear of having them burned down just because the spire on my church is taller than the spire on your church, Greensboro, Arkansas. That's what we want. We want for our cities and our financial districts not to be burned down because they are successful. We want for our small towns, Rosewood, not to be razed to the ground because someone accuses an innocent person of assault just to cover up their own thing. These are the type of things that we want. La Raza, I remember, okay, so if you're from Riverside, and Brandy, you remember over there by Faith Temple, off of Sedgwick, where the settlement house is, that was pretty much where the Hispanic community lived during that time. And it's very much still heavy Hispanic presence in the time. So you will see um, murals about for the Aztecs and Mayans and things like that in the area. So there's still a huge presence of the brown pride and La Raza in those areas. The Black Panther Party, like I was telling Brandy, they are responsible for the WIC program. They would do community breakfast, community literacy, finding people. Gary and his wife were instrumental in finding people housing after their homes were flooded out. They would find people legal counsel, all of these things. So that's what the Black Panther Party was for. But here's the thing. Even a peaceful demonstration or a peaceful party or a group of people have the right to defend themselves against an outside enemy force. If you come here with force, we will return it. That's exactly what the Black Panther Party did. You come at us with force, we will return with the same thing. We have and that became a problem. It didn't become illegal to openly carry a gun in California until when? Until the Black Panther started to do it.
And they weren't shooting nobody, they was just holding it.
It was for their own protection. So having the Black Panther Party come into the East Side and coexist with the people and move in and out with the people, it was a problem for Riverside. It was a problem for Riverside. And I think that's what created this whole storm of mess that this ended up being.
Because it's not what they did, it's what they could do.
Yeah, it was the potential. It was the potential. When you have a rubber band by itself is nothing but a piece of flimsy material, right? If it's on the table. But if you apply a little tension to that rubber band, all of a sudden Newton's laws of physics come into play. You apply tension so that what's going to happen when you release it, the amount of tension that you put on it is the amount of force that it's going to put forward. So the tension is, at this point, in this instance, the police department. The force is now the retaliation, or what's seen as retaliation, by these cultural groups or community groups. And, it happens like this. Now, after this, no one is convicted of these crimes. So 50 years later, actually would have been last year, 2021, 50 years later, you still don't have anybody convicted. There's no one convicted. Now I have to ask you guys this question. With there being no conviction, no witnesses, what do you think happened? Do you think that the three, because mind you, my mom also told me that there was a dance at Boardwalk Park that night.
It could be anybody in that neighborhood.
Anybody.
Who had a real issue with the police. It could have been anybody. It could be somebody in that neighborhood. It could be somebody that were living in the apartments near there. It could be somebody who came to the dance. It could be anybody.
But I don't think that there was apartments.
You said there was the apartments were there at that time.
The ones on Enterprise?
Is that what street it's on?
Okay, so Ottawa goes, you have Pennsylvania, okay, MLK, where the Park Avenue Baptist is, right? Well, that's right next door to Stratton Center. We're next to the park. The next corner right there is Ottawa, where Emerson is. So if you go to the left, you're going towards like 12th Street. And right when you go right over there is Enterprise and I forget the other streets. So that's I'm wondering if that's where they're saying that the apartments are. I'm gonna send this guys to you. Send this to you guys. This is the house where are you okay? What's that noise?
Me be saying ooh, but I mean, or fighting, unless you heard me fighting with Cash. I don't know which one.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, we're used to you making noise.
No, when you go back, you're gonna see plenty.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's out of control.
Your facial expressions the whole time was like you were talking to a kid.
He's a kid.
Oh, crud. Okay. I'm trying to send you guys the link to the house on Ottawa where this happened.
4792.
4792 Ottawa.
Okay.
And
Oh, it's a nice house.
look at the street view. Look at the Google Street View is what's
I'm
interesting.
gonna go out for a minute, but
Uh,
Okay.
expensive house.
it's nice. I bet it is expensive.
Yes. Right. Realtor.com has it valued at about
$771.
So if you look at the street view and then turn the street view to across the street,
like a house, like I guess that's a house.
that's the park. That's
Okay.
the park. Because if you keep turning, you'll see the end of the street. That's all Stratton Center Boardwell Park. And where those bushes and stuff are, that's the end of the parking lot. There's a little brick wall. And behind that brick wall, well, like I said, was the utility trucks and stuff. So I'm not sure where these guys came from, but I'm quite sure the shrubbery has changed over the years in that area. But you know, with this house, if the call was coming from this house and they pulled into that driveway, those are fairly new homes on the other side of that. Because those used to be orange groves. Because on the other side of that house is orange groves. Well, not anymore. They tore down those houses right there. But that used to be orange groves back there. So they could have come from any area. They could have come from behind the house, on the side of the house. On the other side of that is Emerson Elementary School. They could have come from the elementary school. Any of that. They could have been waiting from that dance since they knew that the dance was over there.
They could have been the guy who robbed the bank and got shot. Could have been his folks.
Could have been. Could have been. But then they were connected to Gary Lawton because Gary Lawton was advocating for him.
Yeah. What do you think? As being a family member.
I don't think me being a family member has anything to do with it. I think it's a possibility. There's no evidence one way or the other. I think it's a possibility because, and this is my thought behind it. And again, I'm taking the whole familial kind of thing out of it. Everyone had an opportunity, right? Everyone would have had an opportunity.
Right.
Who was that pissed off though?
Sheesh.
Who was that?
Might have been somebody's family member from the guy they got crippled from the shooting.
It could be. That's what I'm saying. It's a possibility. Improbable, but not impossible.
knocked them upside their head, who knows when,
Yeah.
and had a vendetta. It wasn't like he was the only one that had a run-in with the police. It could have been
Now,
any.
here's the thing: the shotgun that was used to kill Officer Teal was the same shotgun that was stolen from a cop car 2 years ago, 2 years prior to that.
They were
Mm.
just waiting.
Stolen from cops. The car, the cop car was found burned out and the guns were stolen. That was the same gun that was used. Now, I didn't have time to research that because I did not know that until today. But I'm going to find out about that car and about that stolen gun. Because it's very because that right there would be the linchpin to that. Who was suspected in the burning out of the cop car? Who was arrested that night? Who did they round up?
What did they do to them?
What did they do to them? Because that could be the linchpin.
That was literally.
Otherwise, how could they have possession of a gun that belongs to a police department? And come on.
I was literally just thinking it. I mean, literally just thinking it.
And also, the description of the 3 white teenagers and a short black guy with an afro, it's iffy. And then you arrest 3 tall ass black dudes. And if you recall, Brandy,
They was trying to frame them.
if you recall, there was no canyon crest, there was no orange crest, there was no wood crest. So all the white people were concentrated right there. Right there. If they didn't live on the wood streets or up there by Pachapa, you lived on the east side. So there wasn't like you could go to Canyon Crest and go round up some white teens from over there because it didn't exist. That was orange groves. No one lived in Orange Crest at the time. You remember even when we were kids, a trip to Paris was hell. Going down Wood Road was hell. It seemed like it took 8 hours to get there. And it was 20 minutes from the east side now. But when we were kids, it was horrible because there was nothing else out there.
Dirt roads.
Dirt roads. So now that you have $1 million houses in Orange Crest and in Canyon Crest, those did not exist in 1971.
Mm-hmm.
And then why would there be white teens on the east side mixing with the black kids at Boardwell Park? It's very curious. I'm just saying that there's a possibility there would have been an opportunity there, especially if they had this vendetta against Gary Lawton, trying to get him on anything. But I don't necessarily think that would he put himself at risk like that? Like they're already trying to get you.
Yeah, he wouldn't have put himself out there like that though.
Right. And then putting your family through this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like my mom growing up on the east side, you know, them putting searchlights on the house. They're on the telephone poles all the time. In the alleys. My mom said they came to her school. The cops came to her school. Just intimidation on all levels. And I asked her tonight, I said, after he was let out, after this case was dismissed, did it stop? And she said, hell no, it didn't stop. It got so bad that he left. I don't remember seeing this cousin. I'd never seen this cousin. I'd heard stories about him from when they were kids in Alabama. And I kind of heard this story in a hush-hush kind of way because he wasn't there. I don't remember seeing this cousin until like the early 90s. And when I saw him, he had kids that were my age. And he would come to Riverside, but he never told anybody that he was coming. He would come to Riverside and he would come out. Because I'm thinking, and I told my mom this, I was like, of course, If they ran his name, if he got stopped and they ran his name, he would have hell to pay. Because I'm quite sure he's red flag.
Mm-hmm.
He would have hell to pay. His sons would have hell to pay. I have not seen this cousin even before I moved from California, at about 10 years prior to me moving. That's how much he stayed away.
I'm just thinking about all them conversations your grandma had on the phone they had to listen through.
Her and Miss Cooper. Yeah. The ladies network on the east side. But I mean, just think about how scary that is for their families, and you know they're going to put your families through this. And if you're already accusing the police department of brutality, what are they going to do?
You ought to change my name.
He did. He did. I'm not going to mention what his name is, but yeah, I mean, I'll put Larry Gardner because that's in the paper. He did. I mean, these are the kind of like family secrets that no one talks about. And I wonder how many people have these types of stories and connections to these unsolved or painful. I don't want to dismiss
We all do.
the pain or, the long pain that both of those families of those cops have experienced. This story is not to diminish that at all. I really do. That's the betrayal. If you don't stop playing with that damn,
The hour is getting late, girl. The hour is getting late.
we're gonna wrap up. But
I gotta take
again,
portholes off.
oh geez, please don't do that on camera. I really appreciate the documentary done by Christensen's granddaughter. It gives a perspective from her, from her side and her family, and the Riverside Police Department really, and how they viewed it is very nicely done. So we weren't doing this to, diminish your loss or the importance of them at all, because someone did kill them. Someone did kill them. Very young man, and it's horrible. But it's a story. So if y'all have any questions, let us know. We're curious. If you know anything about this particular story, please let us know. If you know anything about that robbery that happened 2 years before that in 1969, please let us know. Instagram, Facebook, or info@blackcoffee.com. blackcoffeecrime.com, info@blackcoffeecrime.com, so y'all can hit us up on that.
Thank you for being a friend. You gotta say the black version, Brandy. Oh yeah. Go ahead, Brandon. I'll do the black version.
Travel down the road and back again.
Say we started from the bottom, now we're here, girl.
But your heart is true.
Ooh,
You're
yeah.
pal and a confidant.
Here comes the best part, y'all.
Doom, doom, doom. And if you threw a party,
Anybody,
invited everyone you knew.
you
You would see the you would be for me, and the card attached would say,
thank you for being my friend. Memories.
yeah. Just make sure you're there at 9:30 for the family car. You getting left. And with that,
Good night, y'all.
you gonna get the benediction.
No, you can go ahead and do it. You can go ahead and pray us out.
I can't remember all the words. Drink some coffee and have a good night.
That'll do it. Damn it, that'll do it. Drink some coffee. That is the new benediction for 2022. Drink some coffee and have
And
a
have
good
a
night.
good night. That's it right
Amen.
there.
Good night, y'all.